Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going on with oh my goodness, I'm sorry, guys. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do the usual disclaimers, the first disclaimer for tonight is going to be that, folks, I am in a severe case of autistic brain fog that I've just kind of been meandering in all day. So I will forget stuff at random that I say every single day or catch myself staring at a wall. It's one of those kind of days, alright? So just be aware if out of nowhere I take a left turn, then take another left turn. Yeah, it's probably why. All right, folks, if you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, pay attention to the article written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read that article so much. They threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic refused. You know the drill, folks. Please read the article. Share on all your social media. Also included is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, just in case the JRC actually does see through with their threat. Trigger warning 1, when we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please utilize your headphones. Trigger number 2. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason, folks. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously, parental supervision is very much advised. Now, in regards to the RFK Jr. stuff, I do still intend to be covering it. But there's one area in particular in his regards to autism that, at least to me, throws everything out the window. But the vaccines and it's causing brain damage, and that's why you have autism and all this. Okay, but riddle me this, Batman. Let's play devil's advocate and say he's right. He's not, but let's just say it for the time being. Explain to me how a group of kids, we'll do the group about around my age, kids that were born 84 to 94, got a nice good 2 different generation range there, and they're receiving all the same exact vaccines, all with all the ingredients at the same amount. If you know anything about autism, whether you work in the field or you are one of us, in which case I'm both, how does he explain how vastly different each person who is given this diagnosis is from one another? Because I've spent the last 3 to 4 days digging and digging and digging and digging and digging. And I have watched a couple of interviews of his. I've see images of the book, but nowhere. I cannot find anywhere where at any point in time he has ever addressed the fact that this diagnosis is called a spectrum for a reason, folks. Functionality fluctuates, that's true. But when you can vastly see the difference from person to person to person, how do you explain those discrepancies? And what would his hypothesis be as to why that same disability affects each autistic person so differently? Right? I mean, at the very least, considering the type of lawyer he is, and I know he's worked on environmental stuff, one would think at some point when he's on this subject that he would at least have something. Even if it's another crackpot, the worm is in my brain and it controls my body sort of monologue we've all heard from him before. But there's bupkis. Nothing. Nothing. Like, pull my hair out by the roots. Nothing. Nothing is addressing that. And if you watch those interviews, he says autistic kids, but he maintains his focus on only one type of autistic, the stereotypical Canner's autism. And essentially saying, well, that's all of them. RFK Jr., no, it's not. How can you explain how one diagnosis can vary so differently from autistic to autistic if it's all coming from a needle? There's not even comments of like, well, maybe the environment that they're growing up in is part of what has that effect. Complete bull, but I would at least expect that. How does he explain how different this diagnosis is from autistic to autistic? We're not all nonverbal, okay? Not all of us are entirely adverse to touch. I'm a huggy person. Mom, brother, the cat, old teachers. I'm huggy, okay? It's only sudden touches out of nowhere, thank you PTSD, that essentially makes me jump out of my skin. And then you have some friends of mine who may be verbal and they can't stand touch. And you have to ask for specific permission. There's too many variations of our diagnosis, too many different ways that it affects each individual differently for you to say that it all comes from a singular cause. And especially you can't say that when you have literally no argument as to how the diagnosis is so different from one person to another. I'm going to keep digging because I want to be able to provide something. I'm trying to do so to the very best of my ability, to not look on it with bias, to hear his own words come out of his mouth. And I'm not talking like small little minute clips. I'm talking about his words within the full context of the subject that he is addressing. Right? I've always thought he was nuts. My opinion on that hasn't really changed. I've been around hospitals. My mom was in healthcare. My dad was a security guard at the same hospital. That was my life growing up. Okay? It just doesn't make sense to me. And it makes even less sense to avoid getting kids vaccinated because they might come down with the tism. All right, I'm kind of done with that rant. We need to get on topic. I did say we were going to left field and taking a left turn. I will try to start working on that series, but first, I'm just desperately trying to find if that man has stated at any point in time an opinion in regards to why each autistic is affected by their diagnosis so differently from one another. Does he think environment plays a part in regards to how much the autism affects us? Because I've found nothing. My head hurts and there's not enough kava tea in the world to block. Oh, I'll be nice. I'll be nice. I'm gonna be nice. Zen. Alright. Now, where we were last night, right? I should really just start putting kava and, like, mainline it into my veins. Kava tea straight to the bloodstream, because holy crap. Okay. The FDA found that the state of art in addressing SIBs and ABs has for decades moved away from the use of aversives like electric skin shock and towards the use of positive behavioral support and, where appropriate, medication or other pharmacological interventions. And here we go again using blanket terms to try and define something else. For the love of God, positive behavioral supports is an umbrella term. What you're looking for is positive behavior reinforcement. That is the name of that type of treatment program. Quit confusing people. I will nitpick on this. I will keep nitpicking on it. It is very much a hill I'm willing to die on. Which I guess that's a little bit of my autistic side coming out, huh? Let's continue before I burst into another random rant. It's noted medication and other pharmacological interventions. I have a mixture of community-based services, person-centered planning, and medicine to help keep my psycho ass calm. Or to put it more nicely, help me deal with the ever increasing anxiety that had gotten so out of control. To the point that I couldn't even stick to my treatment program anymore because that anxiety essentially paralyzed me in a way. We'll get into that another day, but yes, that's usually how we do things, folks. It noted many reasons for this. First and utmost among these are the ethical and humane considerations of applying painful aversives to vulnerable individuals who are unable to provide or withdraw consent. We went over that in the previous paragraph. These kids have had any remote sense of bodily autonomy ripped away from them. What they want doesn't matter to people like this. Okay? When I say up until you're a certain age that you, the parents, are our only wall of defense, I need you to take that seriously. I need you to take that right into your soul. Okay? Because they don't care what we want. We aren't allowed to say no. This has to be where you put your foot down and not allow these bullying pricks to push you around to just accept whatever they're serving you. You are the parent. That is your kid, and you're the boss. As I said, off into left field. Let me get back to where we were. In addition, both the FDA in its proposed rule and many professional organizations focused on behavioral intervention note that the evidence supporting the use of electric skin shocks is weak. Shocking someone for non-compliance does not teach skills or coping mechanisms, does not help someone address underlying triggers, which I have been saying repeatedly for literally over the last 2 decades. If I ever win the lottery, I might just have a giant neon sign be put over this building and just have it blink so brightly that, like, our satellites can pick it up from space. Maybe that I won't have to repeat myself into infinity. But yeah, if you don't address the triggers, it doesn't matter if you use punishment and it stops in the moment because you haven't dealt with the real problem, and the problem's still there when that person is no longer under threat of that violence, and now they got PTSD and a whole hell of a lot of bottled up rage to show for it. Not only will those behaviors come back, but they'll be even more intense and even more dangerous for us and the people around us. It doesn't help. It's abuse and torture, full stop. And there is no excuse, no form of so-called benefit that you can put in front of my face that's going to make me ever say that it would be worth it. Just saying. Let me continue. It also doesn't provide individuals with alternative means to communicate. I've had many the meltdown, particularly when I was a kid, in regards to having difficulty communicating things in a way people around me would be able to understand. Okay? When you can't communicate what you need to, I can't, there is a frustration there that I don't really have words to give it justice. Okay? In order to get to the trigger, you gotta work with communication. If there's issues with communication, you may find out that that just might be the trigger. That was one of my big ones when I was a kid, to be at all honest. So we have things like those little keyboards where they can type what they want to say or tap on a picture if they're young and it's before reading age. Could some learn to use sign language? There's different alternatives to use to help them to communicate what's going on with themselves so that you can get to the root problem. No torture or punishment required. Let me continue, we'll wrap it up for tonight. In fact, as the FDA noted in its 2020 rule, among the many adverse effects that can be caused by ESDs are increases in the supposedly targeted behavior due to psychological trauma. Exactly what I was just talking to you all about. Also, when I do go in the meltdown, triggered by old, very dark memories. See what I mean? They feed each other. Yeah. And the longer you don't deal with the trigger, the worse it's going to get. Okay? Good. Glad we can establish that. As such, it is no surprise that the FDA found evidence that many individuals under this device remain so indefinitely with no improvement in targeted behaviors. That's because punishment does nothing but hurt. Okay. You can't beat, shock, or starve our diagnosis out of us and magically make us neurotypical. Okay? There is no way under God that that is possible. Right? You want the more dangerous behaviors to stop. Find and address the triggers that are causing them. Because as long as those triggers go undealt with, it doesn't matter how much you beat us, starve us, sleep deprive us, or shock us face down, tied down on a 4-point board. They're still going to be there. And it's going to keep happening again and again and again. That's just facts. That's real life. All right? All right, we're going to wrap it up here. These are not individuals who are uniquely refractory. And by the way, stop using that as an argument, JRC. You cannot sit there and look us all in the eyes and say that nobody anywhere else in all the world, out of all us millions of autistics all over the globe, that we're not as severe as those in your small little school. As my stepdad would tell me, horseshit. Absolute horseshit. Whose behaviors persist despite intervention? These are the signs of a treatment that is not only ineffective but harmful. That's very self-explanatory there, folks. I'm going to close out before I take you all into another left field. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So please, folks, don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to utilize the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.